Laxmikanth, Indian Polity, Chapter 1, Day 1, Historical Background. In 1600, the Charter Act of Queen Elizabeth for trading introduced. In 1765, Diwani for the collection of revenue and civil justice of Bengal, Bihar and Orissa. In 1858, due to Shippai Mutiny, direct crown rule. In 1934, amendment suggested need of a constitution. 26 Jan 1950, constitution came into being. The first phase, Committee Rule 1773 to 1858, Regulating Act 1773. British government started to control and regulate the political and administrative affairs of the company. Hence, it laid the foundation of central administration in India. Governor-General of Bengal, Lord Warren Hastings, consists of an executive council with 4 members. Bombay and Madras presidencies were subordinate to Lord Warren Hastings, Governor-General of Bengal. In 1773, Supreme Court of Calcutta were established with 1 Chief Justice and 2 judges. Company's administration was put forward by the Court of Directors with civil, military and revenue powers and their report to British government, and it abolished private trade in India. The Act of Settlement came into existence in 1781. The next act puts into Act 1784. At the time of Warren Hastings itself, and the British government was the supreme, and it comes to call British possessions in India, and the company with 2 wings, commercial and political. The commercial wing consists of Court of Directors and political wing Board of Control, and it is called double government. In Board of Control, which of civil, military, revenue of British possessions. Governor-General of Bengal has a council of ministers of 3 members, and Governor-General Council consists of Madras and Bombay presidencies as well. In Charter of Act of 1813, all British subjects were allowed to trade in India, and missionaries as well allowed to come into India. In Charter Act of 1833, it was final steps towards the centralization of British India, and it was during the time of William Bentinck, who became the Governor-General of India with civil and military and legislative powers. East India Company became purely an administrative with no commercial functions, and it was in Charter Act of 1833 there was as an attempt to introduce open competition for civil service as well, but it was not happen. In Charter Act of 1853, it was called Mini Parliament. Governor-General of India has consisting of Governor-General Council with Indian Legislative Council, which came as known as Indian Legislative Council, which consists of 6 members, 4 Indians from Madras, Bombay, Bengal and Agra, and 2 British members. They introduced open competition in India. There are Indians also allowed. And 1854, we can see the Macaulay Committee. Council Rule, the second phase, 1858 to 1947. Government of India Act, 1858. During the time of Lord Canning, Viceroy of India, then British, who was responsible, British Crown, and the end of double government, and the introduction of Secretary of State for India, with consisting of 15-member councils to advise him. Which this 15-member council act as an advisory body. The members were from the members of British cabinet were responsible to the British Parliament. Corporation of Indians in Administration can be seen in the Indian Council Act of 1861, 1892 and 1909. Indian Council Act of 1861 by Lord Canning was Viceroy of India. It can see the representative institutions emerging. Legislative Council with 3 Indians, Raja of Banaras, Maharaja of Patiala and Sardinagar Rao. New Legislative Councils for Bengal, Northwest Frontier Province in Punjab. For Bengal in 1862, Northwest Frontier Province in 1866, in Punjab in 1897. In 1859, the portfolio system were recognized. Viceroys ordinancing powers without a legislative council for 6 months, and decentralization again started from 1861 to 1937, where the centralizations coming to an end. Charter Act of 1892, Viceroy of India, with the Legislative Council, increased the number of additional members, with retaining the official majority, and the nomination to Central Legislative Council and Provincial Legislative Councils were started, and the powers were given to Legislative Council by the Charter Act of 1892 were discussing the budget, addressing the questions to executive. Government of India Act 1909. Viceroy of India was introduced a responsible government, trying to introduce a responsible government. Central Legislative Council, Provincial Legislative Council were the two wings of Viceroy of India. And in Central Legislative Council, we can see the increasing the numbers from 16 to 60 and with retaining the official majority. At the same time, Provincial Legislative Council also increased its numbers with non-official majority. Then here with Government of India Act 1909, powers were to ask supplementary questions and more resolutions on budget. Viceroy's Executive Council allowed window communal electorate for Muslims, separate representations, presidency corporations, chamber of commerce, universities, and samhitas. At the same time, Lord Minto introduced communal electorate for Muslims. In Indian Independence Act 1947, the Mountbatten Plan came into existence, and it ended the British rule in India and declared an independent and sovereign state in August 1947. Before moving that, let's look at Government of India Act 1919. It called for the introduction of responsible government, with Montagu as the Secretary of the State and Lord Comfort as Viceroy of India. The government continued to be centralized and unitary, even it relaxed the control over the provinces. It consists of further divided this provincial subject into two, transferred and a reserved. Both were administered by the governor, but the transferred subject with the aid of ministers responsible to the Legislative Council, reserved subject with his Executive Council without being responsible to the Legislative Council. It introduced for the first time the bicameral legislature and direct elections in the country, and it required 3 of the 6 members of Viceroy's Executive Council to be Indians, and it extended the principle of communal representation to Sikhs, Indians, Christians, Anglo-Indians, and Europeans, where 1909 it's only for Muslims. It granted the franchise based on property, tax, and education. It created the High Commissioner for India in London and Public Service Commission. It separated the provincial budget and central budget, authorized provincial legislatures to enact their budgets. It provided for the appointment of his statutory commissions to inquire into the working after 10 years coming into force, which was the Simon Commission, who submitted its reports in 1913, recommended the abolition of diarchy, extension of responsible government in the provinces, establishment of Federation of British India, the princely states, and continuation of communal electorate. After, on this basis of this discussion, a white paper on the constitutional reforms were submitted to Joint Select Committee of British Parliament, and it came into existence by Government of India Act 1935. At the same time, in 1932, the communal award were declared by the Ramsay MacDonald to extending the representation of minorities to the depressed classes as well. But the Pune Pact came into being where Gandhi were actively participating. The rest is history. Let's look up to Government of India Act 1935. It's a second milestone towards the completely responsible government in India, which was first one. And it all India Federation consisting of Federation of Princely States as a units. And there were 3 subjects: federal list, provincial list, and concurrent list, and where residuary powers were given to the Viceroy. It abolished the diarchy in the provinces, introduced provincial autonomy, it provided for the adoption of diarchy at the center, and introduced bicameralism in 6 out of 11 provinces. Further extended the communal representation by providing separate electorate to depressed classes, that means scheduled caste, women, and labourers. It abolished the Council of India, established by the Government of India in 1858. The Secretary of the State was provided with a team of advisors. for the establishment of Reserve Bank of India, and it provided for the establishment not only of Federal Public Service but a Provincial Public Service Commission and Joint Public Service Commission, and as well as Federal Court in 1937. The last act, which we said earlier, the Indian Independence Act of 1947. On February 20, 1947, with Prime Minister Clement Attlee, declared that British India would be end by June 30, 1948. The announcement was followed by the agitation by the Muslim League demanding the partition of the country. Again, on June 3, 1947, British government made it clear that any constitution framed by the Constituent Assembly of India cannot be applied to those parts of the country which were unwilling to accept it. Lord Mountbatten, the Viceroy of India, and the partition plan was known as Mountbatten Plan. The plan was accepted by the Congress and the Muslim League as well. Thus is called. The plan was accepted by the Congress and the Muslim League. The features of the Act. It ended the British rule in India. It provided for the partition, and it abolished office of Viceroy and provided for each domain a Governor General. It empowered the Constituent Assemblies to frame constitution for both sides, and it empowered the Constituent Assemblies both to legislate of their respective territories. It abolished office of Secretary of the State for India, transferred his functions to the Secretary of the State for Commonwealth Affairs. It granted freedom to the Indian princely state to either join Indian domain or domain of Pakistan or remain independent. It provided for the governance of each domains and provinces by the Government of India Act 1935 till the new constitution is provided. It deprived the British monarch of his right to veto the bills, as for reservation of certain bills for his powers, but this reserve was reserved for the Governor General. Governor General would have full powers to assent to any bill in the name of His Majesty. It designated Governor General of India and provincial governors as a constitutional head of the state. It dropped the title of Emperor of India from the royal titles of King England. It discontinued the appointment of civil service and reservation of post of Secretary of the State of India. At the stroke of midnight, 14 and 15 August 1957, British rule came to an India. Power has transferred to the new independent domains, India and Pakistan. Hence, Lord Mountbatten became the first Governor General of new domain of India. He swore Jawaharlal Nehru as the first Prime Minister of independent India and the Constituent Assembly of India, formed in 1946 and became the Parliament of Indian domain. Let's just have a look at the Indian government during the 1945-6. Jawaharlal Nehru, who deals with external affairs and Commonwealth relations. Sardar Patel's Home, Information and Broadcasting. Dr. Rajendra Prasad, Food and Agriculture. Dr. John Mata, Industries and Supplies. Jagjeevan Ram, Labours. Sardar Baldev Singh, Defence. C.H. Baba, Work and Mines and Powers. Liaquat Ali Khan, Finance. Abdul Rab Nistar, Post and Air. S.F. Ali, Railways and Transport. Sri Rajagopalachari, Education and Arts. I. Chundridar, Commerce. Ghassan Ali Khan, Health. Joginder Nath Bandel, Law. And first Cabinet of India, 1947. Jawaharlal Nehru, the Prime Minister. Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, Home, Information and Broadcasting. Dr. Rajendra Prasad, Food and Agriculture. Manal Abdul Kalam, Education. Dr. John Mata, Railway and Transport. R.K. Shanmugam Shetty, Finance. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, Law. Jagjeevan Ram, Labour. Sardar Baldev Singh, Defence. Rajkumar Ramut Kaur, Health. C.H. Baba, Commerce. Rafi Ahmad Khidavi, Communication. Dr. Shyam Prasad Mukherjee, Industries and Supplies. V. N. Gadgil, Works, Mines and Powers.